Hey there, everyone. I'm Lou Perez. I'm thrilled to be the host of the Builder Upper Show, a podcast where we talk about everything in construction. Now, let's get into it. I'm excited to bring in our first guest, Gerardo Rivera. He goes by Jerry, and he's from Level 5 Drywall, the COO. Hey, Jerry, how you doing today?
Hey, good morning, Lou. I'm doing all right.
Awesome. So congratulations on your Cowboys win. I saw some of the game last night. They looked pretty good.
Yeah, they did, man. They scared me a little bit for a while. I didn't think they were going to pull it off, but after that big Sunday loss, all your hopes go down the drain because you say, if this is the way the season's going to go, man, we got a long way till next year.
Yeah, and excited to talk about the construction industry with you. You're an expert in the field, a thought leader to amongst many. So just getting started, when did you get into construction and how early was it?
I got into construction when I was around probably 17 or 18. Like most of the guys my age, if you hear the stories, they all started right around high school, right around the end of high school. I started in wood construction. I was working for a framing contractor at the time. Most of what I was doing was, picking up scrap wood, picking up nails, helping install backing here and there, and then just started progressing from there.
That's awesome. I did some carpentry back in the day. I was a grunt on the field and had to carry all the plywood and do all the roofing. And they made me stand on the roof and bring in the trusses. So when all the other guys didn't want to do it, I was up high on the 2-story buildings bringing them down. So I have a special place in my heart for carpentry, and definitely a job that I've never forgotten about.
Yeah, those formative years are what really stick with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So describe the moment when you first felt the adrenaline rush when you completed a structure.
So I've done a lot of building, for other companies. I transitioned from wood carpentry, then I left that for a while, and then I came back and I started doing drywall. I moved to Mexico where I met my wife. I had a couple of kids, came back, and then got into a little bit of trouble in Chicago, and then moved to San Francisco with my sister. And my brother-in-law was a taping foreman for a company called Pimentel Drywall. He's already retired. He sold his company. And that's how I got into drywall and framing. Uh, on the ground, I started scrapping, starting cleaning out jobs, and then slowly started bringing me up to taping. And then one day, one of the drywall installers didn't show up, and he had like a kitchen and a bathroom that I needed to finish up right away. So he kind of threw me in with one of his hangers, and I liked it. I liked hanging better than I did taping because taping, you got mud all over you and there's dust all the time. And not that there's no dust in hanging, but taping is a lot worse. So that's kind of how I got started. I picked it up right away. 3 weeks into drywall installation, I was already, hanging board and making cuts and everything like the guys that had already 5-6 years experience. And so the way I started, and I knew I wanted my own business, was, we were finishing up a small project, and then the neighbor was doing an attic, and he comes over and he says, "Hey, I've got this attic. Do you want to come and look at it?" And then because I don't want to get a company, it's going to be too expensive. So I started, like most of the guys out there, doing, little side jobs here and there. And then the first structure that I completed that I was like really proud was a house that we did in Saratoga Hills. I mean, that place is right on on the main road, and every time you go by there, you can see it. It's a house that very unique. It's got arches. It has groin vaults. It has everything in there. So once it was completed, That was one of the big challenges for me, is to how to get all that stuff together. And then once it's finished, and taped, we had to go back to do some patches. And then that's where I was like, I couldn't get the smile off my face to see how good the place looked. And when we did the patches, the owners were there, the architect was there, the designer was there. They were kind of having a meeting, because the lady wanted to make some changes and stuff like that. And the owner says, "Hey, this is Jerry. He's the one that did all the work here for us." So, I started getting praised for all the work that we did, and that's when it just clicked. I've got a knack for this, so I'm a natural at it. And that's kind of where the dream started for me. But it was a long time from then till we actually started our own company.
Wow, man, what an incredible story. I feel the same way. When I was doing carpentry, we built these big apartment complexes that you couldn't miss. It was in Cudahy, Wisconsin. And every time I drive by there with my kids, I'm like, yeah, hey, dad built that. So, you definitely have to be proud of what you built, and you put your blood, sweat into it, and it's definitely something to be proud of. And
Yeah,
it really generates that passion and wants you to keep going. And how can you do more? I guess that would segue into the next question is, when did you decide that you wanted to be a construction owner?
a couple of years into it, I brought my wife from Mexico.
Mm.
4 of my kids were born in Mexico, so I brought them. And then, we were struggling. We were struggling to pay the rent. We were struggling to have extra food on the table. We were struggling to take them out to Great America, struggling to buy clothes for them, at the beginning of the school year. And, I was saying, there's got to be more than this. So working for somebody all the time, it pays the bills, but you really don't have extra because you're limited to a certain, pay bracket. So, and, back in, what was it, when we had the big downfall in 2008 or something like that?
2008. Yeah.
So I actually got laid off from the company that I was working for. I've only worked for 2 companies my whole life, back since almost 30 years in doing drywall and framing.
Oh, wow.
So I got laid off because work was really slow back then. And I had only been with the company for about 7 years. So the only guys that they kept were guys that had 15, 20 years with the company. Right there is when you start thinking of, now what am I going to do? We started hitting the streets with my brother. My brother's a taper, and trying to find work. Everywhere we'd see a porta potty, we'd stop and we'd knock on the door. And if a GC would come out, we'd give them I made a bunch of little cards, with my name and my phone number. No company name on it or anything. No license number. I mean, we didn't have a license or anything, and we were just, every day we would do the same thing. So we would pick up little bathrooms, little kitchens here and there.
Yeah.
And it was, barely scraping by. Then the company that I was working for, the one that laid me off, actually called me back around a month later and offered me piecework, because I was one of their top producers. So they said, "Look, here's the list of all the guys that have worked for us in the past. Here's a list of all the guys that have worked under you. You can pick whoever you want, and we'll give you guys piecework, because we're starting to do apartments. We're starting to do big homes, and we want to keep you guys, but we can't keep you hourly because, the work is just not there." So that's how I kind of started, my own business, because I was doing piecework.
Yeah.
And I had, at one point, I started with 3 guys. And I think at the end, when I left the company, I had 15 guys working under me, and we were doing whole buildings. Here in Stanford on El Camino Real and Stanford Avenue, there's a strip of houses there, 97 houses. That's one of the, tracks that I did. So every time I go by El Camino Real, I always look to my right. If I'm going, south, I always look to my right. And I always tell my daughters and anybody that's riding it, look, all those houses right here, I built those. So it feels good to see those structures. Like you were saying, you have that sense of pride that, you were part of something and it's always standing there.
Man, that sounds like the hustle. You were grinding it out, and it sounds like you kept your head up. It sounds
Yeah.
like you definitely had some power behind you to keep it going. And the motivation, your family is definitely a big motivation. I feel like that's for sure.
Yeah.
You see the little ones, you got to put food on the table. Doesn't matter how hard it is or how tough your day is. It definitely makes it worth it. And yeah, I feel you on that. That's really great. I know that there's different challenges kind of behind the scenes. Was there any other challenges that you came just in getting a construction company going that you could see or that you could think of initially right off the bat? Like what was maybe a challenge that stood out?
So I want to say that one of the biggest challenges is, passing the exam.
Mm,
Because I tried like 3 or 4 times and I was really good at the application. I was really good at everything. But then when it comes to the law portion of it, I just kept struggling. So that's actually how Alan, Amir Timor, my partner, and that's actually how we hooked up. Is I was still working at the company that I was working for, and a friend of his and a friend of mine, hooked us up together. He said, "Hey, you know what? I got a friend that's a GC. He's doing a house in Atherton, and he's looking for a good drywall guy because all the other guys that he's tried, they've always burned them or don't come back and stuff like that." So I said, "Yeah, I'll go and help him out." So I get to the job site and I'm looking for the GC, right? And then I ask a guy, "Hey, is Alan around?" He says, "Yeah, man, I'll call him for you." I thought he was going to come back from a back office or something like that. No, all of a sudden I see a guy pop his head up from the floor. He's in one of those white suits all full of mud. He was actually underneath the house soldering pipes himself because the plumber had done such a bad job. So that's how we met.
okay.
And we did like 2 projects together. And then after that, we invited him to dinner. And I just put it on the table. I told him, "Look, you know what? I'm struggling to get my license. And, you and I have really hit it off because right away, man, we hit it off. All the same ideas. We wanted to do the same things." And he says, "Yeah, I've got my GC license. All I need to do is take another portion for the, drywall and the framing part.
Yep.
Yeah, let's do it." So it was we'd had till this day, we have no paperwork saying that, "Hey, you know what? We're 50-50 in the company." All it was a handshake.
Wow.
We have all the bank accounts. We have everything together. But there's no document that says, "Hey, this is if something happens to me, it's 50%." All we have is that handshake and that that friendship that we developed through that. In the process of that, I got injured on the job that I was for the company I was working for.
Mm,
I was working on a scaffolding and I was putting up some sheetrock on the ceiling, and a 12-footer got tangled in one of the wires that the electricians leave hanging down. And actually, it was cement board that we were putting on the ceiling because they were going to do tile on the ceilings and everything in a restaurant.
okay.
My son and 2 more guys were working right below us. So when the rock kind of tilted over when I tried to shake it, and so it wouldn't fall on their heads, I kind of held it back. My arm, I don't know how my arm twisted back. So it ripped my rotator cuff, all the ligaments and tendons in my shoulder.
Oh
It ripped
man.
them. It just tore them up. And then the way I twisted, the L1, L2 vertebrae down at the end of your spine,
Mm.
I've got 2 herniated discs, and I kept working. I didn't feel that bad. And just like the 3rd day when I started really cooling down, things would just slip out of my right hand.
Oh man.
Oh crap, there's definitely something wrong there when things start falling out of you. Like I could hold a glass of water and it would just slip
Just
out.
drop right
Yeah.
out. Oh.
So I went to go to the hospital and the doctor says, "No, you can't go back to work, man. You're the inside of your shoulders all tore up."
Mm.
So that process took about a year between workman's comp and trying to align a surgeon. So I have 3 surgeries on my shoulder. Then, by that time we were already working with Alan. I was kind of like managing without a license.
Yeah.
And, so when this happens, the doctor said, hey, you're not going to be able to go back to installing.
Mm.
So unless the company that you're working for has a position for you in the office, you're going to have to look for something else. But this is what I know how to do. This is what I love to do.
Yeah.
So after that is when we really started pursuing our license. And then as soon as we got it, I started going after, anybody and everybody.
That's so wild. Like you can almost compare that to a professional athlete. I know it's in the trades, but still that's your profession. And it's
Yeah.
like, what are you going to do after it's done? What happens when you can't pick up that ball anymore? You have something lined up, and it sounds like you definitely adapted and made the change and hit it head on. That's wild. It's crazy. So that took a year to. I mean, I'm guessing you can hold stuff now. Do
Yeah.
you ever get any? Does anything like you notice it still, or is it long gone? Is it in the past?
No, I notice it still because, for example, I can reach things,
Yeah.
that are up high, but I don't have that range of motion like I used to,
Ah.
or to the back of with my left hand, I can scratch my back, but with my right hand, I can't. So that's why I want a big shower so that my
Yeah.
wife can go in and, shower with me so she can scrub my back.
Oh, that's great. Uh, so when you got everything going, and you guys are pretty successful as far as level 5 goes. There's a lot of people that know you, even all the way out here in Wisconsin. I know you guys are in California, but your
Yeah.
name still pops up around our area, so it's pretty impressive of how you guys were able to scale.
Yeah.
And could you give me like a little background of maybe some things that you did to help you scale to that level? No pun intended.
Oh, yeah. So, when we started, when we established our company, it was, I think 2005, January 2nd or January 4th, 2015 is when we got our license. And when we established corporation and everything and started going, full force, we started out with, I believe it was 2 rockers and 3 tapers. 5 guys and Alan and myself, and then another partner that we had. We had another partner, but he kind of went his own way, and we took this thing to where we are now. I have to say that the biggest thing that we did was be honest with the guys,
Good.
treat them well, pay them well,
Yeah.
and start looking into technology. Because we were doing time cards on paper.
Mm.
Coming from the field, I know what that is because, I would put down and it's funny because I actually told my old boss this. He called me one day because they were looking into a system that we were using called the Exact Time, and
Mm.
he says, "Hey Jerry, we're thinking about getting Exact Time. What do you think about it?" I go, "I think it's something great because you guys are going to see how many hours you're going to be saving." He goes, "Well, how do you know you save a lot of hours?" I go, "Because I used to do it, the same as everybody else does it. We would work 6.5 hours or 7 hours, and we would always write down 8 hours on our time cards.
Right.
So you always have that. Anybody that does paper time cards, they trust their guys, but you know what? At the end of the day, the guys, we take it upon ourselves as employees sometimes to say, hey, you know what? I'm busting my ass. I'm going to work harder these 7 hours so I can go home an hour early. Well, yeah, but I'm getting paid for 8 hours. I'm not getting paid for 7 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So after those 7 hours, you just write down 8 hours and there goes the paper. So technology has really helped us. I'm old school. I learned how to do takeoffs with a little, tape measure that was about this big. So I used to get all the linear footage and then convert it to square footage. And then my partner, Alan, he's always worked in technology.
Mm.
So he kept saying, Jerry, this is not the way to go. We need to implement more technology into our business. So we started
Okay.
getting into digital takeoff. We started getting into digital time cards. We moved from, QuickBooks to the system that we have now, which is our own system.
Mm.
And from there, we started scaling because we started being more productive. We started being really conscious about where we were spending our money. And, like I said, we started with 5 guys. And right now on our peak seasons, we have up to 150 guys.
Oh, wow. That's a lot to manage.
Yeah.
So as far as like, and it's great that you implement technology to help you scale. It sounds like it's a logical choice to do. Um, do you even use technology in the field? Like
We
not
do.
not just for time tracking, but like even technology for the actual jobs itself?
Yeah. So most of the framers that have, like white beards like me, they still want to use the paper plans to write their notes on. But all the newer guys, that are in their mid 30s or close to their 40s and stuff like that, once we've taught them how to use the iPads, it's so much easier and so much faster.
Mm. Do you feel like that could help even with like recruitment, showing that your company is tech driven for the younger generation to come in and get excited about doing construction and having that capability?
I think so. Yeah, because most of the kids right now that are in high school and stuff, not all of them see high school or see education as something that they want to do, or
Hmm.
they're just struggling. They're kids that come from broken families and stuff like that. That those are all the kids that you're getting into the trades right now.
Yep.
Everybody that comes from a really, really rocky background. So once you start showing them and implementing technology into whatever it is that you're doing, they start seeing as, hey, you know what? I had a really crappy dad, but he was a hard worker. And I always used to see how he'd come home, all tired. And he'd just want to sit on the lazy boy with a beer in his hand and not even want to get up and throw a ball at me or something like that. And they start wanting to change that pattern that they went through into something new. With technology, they can do it because
Yeah.
they're not going to be home that tired. And they're already putting their hours in. So they know the basics of construction. They know the basics of, hanging drywall, taping, plumbing, painting, whatever it is. But now they see that with the technology, they can get a better position. They can get like a management position where
Mm.
they're not going to work as hard and they're going to be making more money.
Which is definitely something that they want.
And believe me, in California, it's not that they just want it; it's that they
They
need it.
need it. Yeah, they need
Yeah.
that bigger paycheck to sustain
Oh yeah.
life. And what do you do to, kind of lighten the load as far as having fun with the crew? Do you guys do anything fun and creative with them to keep them excited and happy at the company?
Yeah. So once a year, we take all our foremen. I'll make a reservation at a Brazilian steakhouse, and we always take them out to dinner at least once a year.
Oh,
At the
nice.
Yeah, at the end of the year, whatever days they don't use up for sick pay or whatever, we could ignore it, and then those days just wash off at the end of the year. But what we do is we'll cut them a separate check for whatever days they didn't use.
That's
We
great.
always take off from Christmas to New Year. We take that week off, and we always tell the guys, hey, if you guys are working overtime, if you want to save your days or if you want to save your sick days and whatever, we pay them for that full week.
Oh,
Uh,
that's wonderful. Yeah.
yeah. Another thing that we do is once a year we'll have a Christmas party for all the guys and their families. So this
Um,
year, man, you're invited. December 16th.
oh,
It's
I'm
gonna be
there.
here. We usually do it at a nice restaurant, but this year we have so many guys that to make a reservation for 200 people is it's a little bit challenging. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna have a really good Mexican food caterer. He's gonna
Oh,
come and cater to the right here at the back of our shop. There's a big parking lot, so we're gonna get canopies, a couple of heaters, tables, and then lots of food, man.
you're speaking my language.
Yeah.
So, uh,
Another thing that we do for our guys is, Chris, my son, he manages most of the installation workforce.
oh, he does.
So
Okay.
yeah, so typically on Fridays, whatever jobs that he's on, he'll go and buy carnitas or Chinese food or something for the guys. And
Nice.
then when we have a big crew on one job site, say we have 20, 30 guys,
Yep.
typically the guys will pitch in and then we'll buy meat, and then we'll make a barbecue. I usually cook for all the guys, so
The
it's
grill master.
yeah, man. Yeah, it's
That's the way
fun.
to be.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was thinking about when you said the Brazilian steakhouse. Uh, they give you so much meat, you can get the
yeah.
meat sweats within a short amount of time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's great, man. It sounds like level 5 is definitely a great place to work. Sounds like, you guys figured it out, and you have the secret sauce to make sure that the company can keep growing and everybody stays happy. So congrats on that. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Um, for the last question, before we wrap up, I would really like to ask, if do you have any advice for new construction owners that you would like to share with them?
Yeah, is the best advice that I think I can give them from experience is that you got to be in the trenches with your guys.
Mm,
You can't lead from the office. You can't manage from the office. The office is good for you got to come to the office once in a while, but I'm rarely in the office. I set up an office in the field, and that's where I work from. Uh, Usually from our bigger job sites. But I just like to be there,
that's
And
great.
then the last advice that I could give somebody like that is that, like I said, you got to be in the trenches, and you got to treat your people right.
Yeah.
You have to be you have to be that guy that pays a little bit more than everybody else. So how do we get such a big workforce? Well, number one, we need them to to man the jobs that we have. But then if I need an extra 50 guys, I can always go to my guys and tell them, hey, next week I'm going to need 20 hangers, or, in 3 weeks, I'm going to need maybe 10 tapers. So
Mm,
they'll go, everybody has family that's in the trades. So they'll go and recruit for me. And then I'll tell them, look, I'm going to need them for maybe 3 or 4 weeks. And guys that are already coming in, they already know it's not going to be something permanent. But I always tell the guys, hey, don't take this just as an 8 hour job. Take it as a competition, because if work slows down, the guys that are going to keep busy are the guys that are producing a little bit more, and the guys that don't, complain, and the guys that if I send them to do a patch, they're going to go do the patch and then come back to their job. So I like to be honest and upfront with everybody. That's about all the advice that I could give somebody starting out.
Thank you for the great advice. That's amazing. Just so everybody knows, this is a Lumbercast production brought to you by Lumber. And Jerry is working with Lumber today. Jerry, what do you have to say about Lumber and lumberfi.com, and how you guys are working together?
Well, one thing that I really like about Lumber is that they actually listen to us. Being in the trenches, being in the office, being struggling with payroll, struggling with time applications, struggling with compliance here in California is one of the biggest challenges for contractors starting out. And I feel that, the direction that Lumber's going right now is exactly to solve all those problems, so that you don't go through the hassle that we've gone through, for 7 years. Now you can just go out and, purchase a product, but sometimes that product is incomplete. And
Mm.
I feel that Lumber wants to encompass the whole struggle that contractors go through, and simplify it.
Wonderful. Well, Jerry, thank you so much again for being a
Yeah.
guest on our show. We really appreciate it. Everyone that's listening today, go ahead and smash that like button, subscribe, comment on the video, share it with all your friends. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time. Bye.